Hello there. I'm Joe Ruggiero, and welcome to my podcast, Inspired, and the people who inspire me. I think we're in for a real treat this morning. I know I've often said that, but we're going to speak to a real-time archivist, and he's going to tell us about the history of these parts. We're sitting right in the middle of what was Warner Ranch, or part of Warner Ranch, at the Calabasas Country Club. So without further ado, I'll have him explain it. Here's Brian Rooney.
Good morning, Joe. Thanks for having me on. So the basic history of the property where we're sitting right now is that between 1932 and 1959, Warner Brothers Studios owned this property, and they shot over 100 movies here. And but as we were talking about earlier, it was normally the exteriors that were shot here, with the interiors being shot on a soundstage. But the Calabasas Country Club is only part of what comprised the old Warner Ranch, because the full ranch actually went from Mulholland Drive, where the motion picture home is, all the way out west to Las Virgenes Road. So it encompassed almost all of today's developed Calabasas, except for Old Town Calabasas, which was never part of the ranch. So,
right. Well, the interesting part is that I think Juarez was filmed here.
So unbeknownst to a lot of people, the Warner Brothers Ranch wasn't just the country club here. It was actually 2,800 acres spanning almost all of today's developed Calabasas, all the way from the motion picture home over on Mulholland Drive, all the way out west to Las Virgenes Road. The only main part of Calabasas that was not part of the Warner Ranch was what is today Old Town Calabasas, where the historic shops are, and the adobe and things like that. Because that was already set up, that was already going full-fledged, but all the property out behind Old Town was all open rolling hills, and so Warner Brothers just came in and I think it was 5 or 6 different properties that they bought and pieced together to form a 2,800-acre ranch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I know that Juarez, with Paul Muni
Yeah.
and Betty Davis,
Right.
was shot here.
Yep.
And they recreated Old Juarez and then destroyed it.
Yep.
But, of course, that was only one-dimensional. Because,
Right.
as you explained, these facades
Yes.
were meant to be, and then you'd go through the doorway and you'd be in the studio.
Exactly. Right.
Right.
A lot of sets that look incredibly sturdy, and a lot of old, like you said, old Juarez and old Western frontier towns that they look extraordinary on film, but they are just very cheaply made because they're oftentimes only intended to stand for just that one movie. Because then they will tear it down and redesign a whole other Western town or a whole other Mexican village for the next movie, for example.
Amazing.
Yeah, to make it to keep it fresh looking and stuff like that. But it's interesting too that part of the reason why the movie ranches went away, because out here in this area were 3 movie ranches. It was not only Warner Brothers, but it was Paramount Ranch over in south of Agora Hills, and the 20th Century Fox Ranch, which is today Malibu Creek State Park. But by the mid 1970s, audiences had become so familiar with the Santa Monica Mountains, they could recognize them on screen. And when you put a title below a scene shot here locally, saying this was a foreign country or another state,
Right.
people stopped getting fooled, and so they divested themselves of the ranches and started shooting at actual other locations.
Right.
But it was an era of great efficiency when you had a studio down in Burbank, for example, and you had then almost 3,000 acres about a half an hour away, to shoot large exteriors and all
Right.
kinds of stuff in.
The other thing I thought that was very, very interesting, for those who have not visited Calabasas Country Club,
Yeah.
is that the original blue, or what is it, Velvet?
Oh, National Velvet.
National Velvet with Elizabeth Taylor and
Yeah.
Mickey Rooney.
Right.
Those barns remain to this day.
Right.
And they are disintegrating, which I would love to see someone from Warner Brothers come in and rescue them.
Right. Well, I spoke with a gentleman here at the club about that barn, And there are plans apparently to turn that into an event space. But the challenge is to build a new event space and keep the historic exterior the same, because there's wonderful character in that old building.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And historical reference.
Right. But it's interesting that I would applaud the club if they were able to pull that off, because it's a structural issue. They would just literally have to build a new building inside the old barn.
That's right.
But the great thing about that is that the new building then provides structural support for the old building, and keeps it from blowing over in a windstorm, for example.
It's amazing it's lasted, because
Yes.
that was filmed in the 30s.
Right. But that's what's interesting. That was built as a functional barn. It wasn't necessarily a set, although I think it was used as a set. But no, it's been a functional barn. It was built to last, so that's why it's still standing.
Well, it was rumored that Harry Warner
Yeah.
and his wife liked to ride.
Right.
So maybe those stables were actually functional.
Yeah. Could have been. Yeah.
How did you become an archivist?
It happened when I still do. I've been living over at Malibu Lake for over 20 years now, and a gentleman there in the neighborhood, when I first moved out there, he had been there for 35 years already himself. He would take his neighbors out on local history walking tours, and I learned so much on those tours. I turned to Gordon at one point and said, "Is anyone writing this stuff down?" And he goes,
Right.
"Nah." And so with my background in writing and photography and graphic design, I realized I needed to do a book, because the Coronel area, which comprises Malibu Lake, is the only known neighborhood in Los Angeles with a one-room schoolhouse, general store, and post office dating to the 1920s. All three of them are still standing and still in use today, and that's a remarkable thing for Los Angeles County, to have such historical buildings clustered together like that.
Now, how can our listeners, subscribe to that? Or
Well, I wrote a book 20 years ago that's still going strong. It's called 3 Magical Miles. It's available on my website, which is, appropriately enough, 3magicalmiles.com. And so it's available there, and you can do it with a couple mouse clicks. You can get a copy, and I'd be happy to autograph a copy to anyone and send it right out to you. So
now, tell me about the availability for people visiting the Calabasas Community Library.
yes.
They can go in and reference all this material that you have put together.
I didn't put it together. There was people over the past decades have actually put it together. I'm in charge of organizing it and what's called interpreting it, which is getting it out there to the public, because this giant collection has never truly been shared on a wide scale, and it needs to be shared. So one of the things I did is I designed a historical website for the city library, and we're putting a bunch of material on there with a lot more to come. There's already 200 photos of historic Calabasas on there, and we have a lot more to come. I also put together a clip reel that's about 5 minutes long, and I put it on YouTube.
Wow.
Of movies shot in Calabasas, and most of those, understandably, are shot here on the Warner Brothers Ranch. So that's on YouTube, and I wrote down the name. The name of that is Calabasas on Screen in Movies and Television. And that's
Interesting.
That's on YouTube, and you can watch it as many times as you want. So,
Very, very interesting, because this was considered the wilderness, right?
yes, very much so. Yeah, it was considered the wilderness, or it was the wilderness so much that when productions were shooting here, understandably, they had to have large generator trucks come in to provide electricity for the cameras and the lights and the microphones and everything. And not only that we have a picture of Errol Flynn, who was a Warner Brothers contract player, who shot more movies on this property than anyone. I think he did close to 10 movies, maybe even more.
Wow.
On this property. He was Civil War generals and Old West explorers and all kinds of stuff. But we have a picture of him on a telephone here on the ranch that is literally it's the backside of a production truck, and they figured out how to put a telephone on there. But there's a telephone cable going probably several miles out to the highway.
Wow.
Just so he can make calls while he's shooting a film.
Well, there's some interesting memorabilia here
Yeah.
of photographs like of Grace Kelly and
Yep.
Gary Cooper and the list goes on and on. Calamity
Yes.
Jane
Yes,
that
absolutely.
were filmed here. Tell us a little about the article that you've worked on with 91302.
Oh, that magazine article, the publisher, a very lovely woman, she asked me to put together a brief history on the ranch, and it's mainly pictorial because the pictures we've got are so wonderful. And it's going to spur me to certainly do more research on the ranch because I do want to find out more. But the opening spread is of Gary Cooper shooting a really great movie here on the ranch called Sergeant York.
Wow, yes, I remember it. He
Yes.
won an Academy Award.
I think he did,
Yeah.
yes. And that movie is particularly fun because the Warner Ranch here plays his home state of Tennessee. It plays a Army training facility, I think, in Michigan, and it also plays the World War I battlefields in Europe. All three, this ranch was transformed into all three of those places.
I believe it.
Yeah. And it's fascinating, because back then there was a greater suspension of disbelief. And so you would put on the bottom of the screen when you're watching the movie, the studio would put on, this is where we are. We're in Minnesota now. We're in Europe now. We're in Tennessee now. And people would go, okay, sure, we're in Tennessee. Great. No problem.
Well, through the magic of Hollywood,
Yes.
they
very
were
much so.
able to, with their architectural historians,
Yeah.
recreate these
Yes.
facades.
Yes. Absolutely.
Now, you're working on a documentary.
Yes, I did a documentary on the Torpin kids. There's only 3 kids who have ever been born and raised on a major studio ranch, and they were the Torpin kids. The family was kind enough to let me use over 500 pictures and 40 reels of 8mm home movies of theirs. And I put together a 30-minute documentary which is all about the singular experience of growing up on a movie ranch. Literally walking around with stars everywhere and getting to play on sets and props as a kid.
Fascinating.
There
now,
was
will that be offered as at one of the Sundance festivals? Or?
Oh, I'm hoping to. I'm hoping because the Motion Picture Academy was involved in the early production of this project, I am hoping to debut it at the Motion Picture Academy at one of their screening events. And as soon as that's done, then I'd like to put it on the film festival circuit, ideally, yes.
Where did you grow up?
I am a native of Portland, Oregon.
Ah, I thought you were going to say California.
No. No, and
Very few of those.
I came down here in search of sunshine, and I found it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did you have any interest in this archival kind of?
Not when I arrived. It was really living in the very historic area around Malibu Lake that spurred my interest in all of this.
You wanted to be a movie star.
No, I didn't. No, no, I did. By my own admission, I did come down here to write and produce, but then detours happened, and I ended up doing other stuff.
That's what happens.
But the irony is that now, 35 years after arriving here, I have basically just finished my first short film. So there you go.
Well, our listeners are fascinated by people's journey
Yeah.
and how they get to where they are. And I think that that's of interest to me.
Sure.
And many of them have had wonderful childhoods,
Yeah.
but some haven't.
Right.
And how they had to, with their vision and with their, I guess it's entrepreneurship,
Right.
grew out of it.
Yes. Or
what
they
in-
channel their pain from earlier life into a focused effort.
That's right.
Right.
Well,
That's very
what
common.
was
too.
your childhood like?
Oh, I had a totally normal, happy childhood.
Oh, good.
So which is why I can never be a great artist.
No, I think most creatives had either mentoring from their parents
Right.
or a neighbor or a friend.
Right. Well, I was lucky because my father was a marketing and communications major, and my mom was an English major, and so communication and writing and all that type of stuff was baked into me. So, and I love visual communication, which is why I really enjoy being an archivist, because a lot of the best archival material is visual. It is photographs, it's maps, it's brochures, It's all kinds of stuff like that. Because text is good, but if you've ever watched a Ken Burns documentary, for example, the visuals are just wonderful.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, could you tell us a little bit about the Calabasas adobe?
Sorry?
Ray's adobe?
Well, the Ray's adobe is over in Agora Hills.
It is?
Are you talking about the Leonis adobe?
Leonis, I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, I'm not an expert on the Leonis adobe because there is a woman over there who is an expert on it, and they've got a staff of people so much more knowledgeable about that building that I just haven't really focused on that. So, but what I do know is it is, I believe, the oldest building in Calabasas. It is fortunately protected. I do know that a generous benefactor ended up buying the building and buying the grounds and then creating the foundation that now has it permanently preserved. So, which was terrific because it was actually about to be sold to a developer and something else was going to go there, and she stepped in and basically laid down all the money needed to buy the building and buy the grounds and create a permanent trust to keep that thing going.
Well, I have 5 grandchildren, and each of them have visited the adobe, and it's a living museum.
Yes,
which is wonderful.
It's a wonderful place. So,
And
the other old building that's kind of kitty corner from the adobe is the old Kramer's General Store, which is standing today as, well, actually, I think it's empty currently, but it was a series of little boutiques and a nail salon and a hair salon.
Right.
It's the very first building on the left-hand side as you come into Old Town. It's a little gray. It looks like an old general store, and that's exactly what it is. And I'm sorry?
And was.
Yeah.
Dating back to...
Oh, boy. I don't have the exact dates, but I believe it was put there in 1920 or so. I believe it's been standing there for 100 years, and I am trying to work with the city of Calabasas to formally protect that building as well. Because I'd like to protect that building. I'd like to protect the old barn here on the country club property. There's a couple of other old buildings that I think deserve protection, and hopefully we can get that done.
Well, do you go through the conservancy?
Well, we could, but it would be much faster to have the city, to work with the city to figure out some way to do that. Because it's really city history, and I would absolutely love to reach out to the Los Angeles Conservancy. Absolutely. That'd be great. But I have so much on my plate, I need to get the Calabasas collection organized first, and then I can go after these buildings. So,
how long have you been at the library?
for 5 years.
Oh, so...
Yeah. So not very long, but yes.
Right. You do have some tenure.
Yes. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about any other knowledge of the Warner Ranch.
Well, one of the things I was very happy to come across is I found on eBay a one-person's collection of Warner Ranch photos from the World War II era.
Wow.
And they were able to get onto the property when the shooting wasn't happening, and they walked around and took pictures of the sets. But I tell you that the picture that I love the most is a picture of the front gate that you would drive up to when you got to the ranch. And so when I saw this picture, I said, okay, here's the new question. Where was the front gate of the Warner Ranch? And so that took some detective work because it would make most sense, if you think about it, to use an existing roadway to get into the ranch and not have to build a new roadway. And what we do know, as you know, the only real exit, at least historically, from that era, from the 1930s onward, has been the Mulholland Highway overpass. Now, back then, there was no overpass. It was the Ventura Highway, not the Ventura Freeway. And on the highway, on almost any highway, you can pull off to the side and there are businesses right there. You can't do that on a freeway because of the walls, the concrete walls. But on a highway, you can pull off. So on the Ventura Highway, you would basically exit where the motion picture home is, okay? And using that as a starting point, knowing that that was where most of the traffic was coming through, because again, Old Town Calabasas is actually was the commercial center of Calabasas, because that's where the grocery store was, that's where the post office was, things like that. So it would make most sense that if you were coming from L.A., you would exit somewhere there. So we figured that the entrance was somewhere near Old Town. And so then what I did is I jumped. The University of California, Santa Barbara has a wonderful historic aerial photo collection. So I jumped into that collection and started looking at aerial photos from the 1930s and 1940s of Old Town. And I was able to match up a long running fence that ran basically along today's Calabasas Road, just uphill from it, with a driveway going in and a guard shack.
Wow.
The aerial photos match exactly the building layout that is in the photo that I bought off of eBay. And so now we have been able to determine that the old entrance to the Warner Brothers Ranch was basically where the Ralph's grocery store is today on Park Granada. I believe that's Park Granada right there. And so basically, if you came off of Calabasas Road and you made a left-hand turn and you're going up toward the Ralph's at the Commons, just past the Ralph's was an old guard gate and a guard shack, and they would let you in right there.
Very, very interesting.
Now, the other interesting thing about that photograph is that the person who was guarding the front gate is not a studio guard. It is a U.S. military soldier, because World War II was going on and a Japanese invasion was being taken very seriously. And just like today, how when the Academy Awards are happening in Hollywood, that is a heavily guarded site. A lot of people don't realize that there are snipers in hotel windows looking for bad people when all those celebrities are walking in. It's a heavily guarded event, and in the very same way, they don't want a globally televised event to be taken over by a hostage situation or a terrorist situation. So in the very same way, though, in World War II, with the Japanese threat happening, they didn't want a truckload of Japanese soldiers driving up to the front of the ranch and taking over the property, because that would be very bad for the American movie business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So they had an actual soldier out in front of the gate.
Brian, before we close,
Yeah.
is there anything that you want to mention in terms of your enthusiasm? What inspires you?
What inspires me? That's a good question. What inspires me is sharing historical information, because it is a time machine when you can look at a photograph and then look at what's there today and see what it used to look like. That's the closest thing we have to a time machine.
You do it well.
Thank you. And I'd also like to say very quickly that to anyone listening, if you have historical photos of the Calabasas area, please contact me, because we'd like to make scans of them and put your name on the scans to archive them and preserve them.
Excellent job. Thank you so much for spending this time. I know you spend 70 hours a week.
Yes. Lots of work to be done.
We love your enthusiasm. Thank you.
My pleasure.